What if I told you that the very pain you try so desperately to escape is the very place where your soul is asking to be found? What if the wounds you hate are not signs of failure, but invitations, whispered invitations to discover the truth you have been avoiding? You see, we live in an age that teaches us to numb ourselves, to run, to cover our suffering with distractions, noise, and shallow pleasures. But what if your suffering is not your enemy at all? What if your suffering is the lantern in the darkness, pointing toward a secret meaning hidden just beneath the surface of your pain? Have you noticed how the world tells you that you must avoid discomfort at all costs, that happiness is defined by how effectively you can drown out your sorrow with comfort, entertainment, or escape? Yet, in the silence after the noise, in the quiet moments when no distraction remains, what do you hear? You hear the cry within you, a cry that refuses to be silenced, because it is not meaningless. It is the most meaningful voice you have. I want to tell you something that may sting, but you already know it in your bones. You are not suffering because life is cruel, random, or against you. You are suffering because your soul is calling you into a confrontation with meaning. And meaning always demands something of us. It demands courage, responsibility, sacrifice, and above all, truth. Suffering strips us bare of illusions, and in that nakedness we are forced to ask the questions we have avoided. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is this pain trying to tell me? Do you remember the times when you thought that if only you achieved that goal, bought that thing, found that person, or reached that moment, the emptiness inside would dissolve? And then, when you finally reached it, the satisfaction faded like smoke between your fingers. Why does it always happen this way? Because you were chasing comfort, not meaning. You were chasing relief, not truth. And suffering comes like a shadow to remind you, the things you think will save you cannot save you at all. But let me share with you what I discovered in the most brutal of human experiences. In places where suffering was unimaginable, where hope seemed impossible, I found that the human spirit has a power greater than any cruelty. I found that even in the most horrific suffering, life never loses its potential for meaning. Do you hear me? Never. Not in the camps, not in loss, not in despair. Meaning is always present, hidden, but waiting. And suffering is the doorway through which we must walk to discover it. Suffering does not ask whether you are ready. It arrives uninvited, shaking the foundations of your world. And when it does, you have two choices: to collapse into despair and see yourself as a victim of chaos, or to rise into responsibility and ask the only question that matters: what is life demanding of me right now, in this pain? Not, why me, but, for what purpose can I endure this? This is the secret no one wants to tell you. The very suffering you curse may be the soil in which your purpose is growing. The pain you run from may be the teacher your soul has sent to awaken you. We long for freedom, but true freedom is not the absence of suffering, it is the power to choose how we respond to it. Do you see? You cannot always choose the conditions of your life, but you can always choose the meaning you give to those conditions. Think of the moments when you thought you were at the end, when the weight of existence pressed so heavily that you could not imagine another day. Yet here you are. You survived what you thought would destroy you. And in surviving, you revealed something extraordinary: you are stronger than you believed. You are more resilient than you thought. Your suffering did not kill you, it revealed you. And that revelation is the first spark of meaning. But meaning is not found in asking life to give you what you want. It is found in asking yourself what life wants from you. Life is not a question you demand answers from, life is a question that demands an answer from you. And suffering is how that question is asked. Look within your suffering right now. What is it pointing to? Is it asking you to forgive someone you have refused to forgive? Is it asking you to let go of an identity you no longer are? Is it asking you to stop living for approval, applause, and fleeting success, and start living for truth, for love, For service you know the answer. You feel it in your soul, even if you try to silence it. And here is the paradox: once you embrace the suffering rather than fleeing from it, once you look it in the eyes and say, "I will not run anymore," it begins to transform. Suffering ceases to be pure torment and becomes a crucible, a place where your old self burns away, and the essence of who you are is forged. Without suffering, you would remain asleep, distracted, lost in illusions. But through suffering, you awaken. Through suffering, you become. This is why I say, do not curse your suffering. Listen to it. Do not bury it. Let it speak. Because hidden within it is a meaning that cannot be found in pleasure, in comfort, or in success. It can only be found in the fire of your trials. So I ask you now, what is the meaning hidden in your suffering? What is life asking of you? Not tomorrow, not when things are easier, but here, now, in the very place of your struggle. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not meaningless. You are being invited to rise into the nobility of the human spirit, to discover the purpose that pain has carved into your soul. And when you finally accept that invitation, you will see the truth that changes everything: suffering was never your enemy. It was your path to meaning. And meaning, my friend, is the secret that makes life worth living. There is a truth we all try to escape, but it follows us like a shadow we cannot outrun. The truth is this: you suffer not because life is meaningless, but because life is demanding something greater from you. And the weight you feel is not the weight of senseless pain, but the weight of a question that has not yet been answered. That question is not why you suffer, but for what reason you are alive despite your suffering. From the very beginning, you were taught to see suffering as a curse. You were told to avoid it, to fear it, to silence it. Yet suffering is not a curse, it is a mirror. When you look into it, you see yourself stripped of illusions, stripped of masks, stripped of every false comfort you once used to hide from truth. And in that mirror you are confronted with the most terrifying and liberating of realizations: life will not give you meaning unless you dare to create it. Have you noticed how suffering has a way of interrupting the script you thought your life would follow? You had plans. You had dreams. You had images of who you were supposed to be. And then suffering arrived, sometimes in the form of loss, sometimes in betrayal, sometimes in the quiet despair of emptiness, and it shattered the script. It left you with nothing but questions, questions that kept you awake in the silent hours of the night. What is the point? Why must I endure this? How can I go on? I know these questions, because I have lived them. I have sat in places where suffering was beyond comprehension, where cruelty stripped away dignity, where death was not a distant rumor but a daily neighbor. And even there, I discovered something that still astonishes me: suffering, no matter how great, always contains the possibility of meaning. Even in the darkest corners of human history, the human spirit can say yes to life. This is the paradox: the deeper the suffering, the greater the opportunity to discover meaning. The more brutal the loss, the more urgent the question of purpose becomes. And when you dare to face that question not with despair, but with courage, you find that suffering is not the enemy of meaning, but its hidden ally. But here is where many falter. They think that meaning is found only in joy, in success, in triumph. They believe that suffering must first be erased before life can hold value. And so they wait, endlessly wait, for the day when suffering will leave them alone, when life will finally become easy, when all wounds will be healed by time. Yet time does not heal all wounds. Time reveals what cannot be ignored. And suffering, if denied, grows into despair. Do you feel the difference between suffering and despair? Suffering is pain with potential. Despair is pain without meaning. You may not choose whether or not you suffer, but you always choose whether or not you despair. Despair is the refusal to see meaning. And meaning is what transforms suffering into a path, into a teacher, into a crucible where your truest self is forged. Perhaps right now you stand at such a crucible. Perhaps you are weary of pretending, weary of numbing, weary of pretending the noise of the world can drown out the ache inside you. You know the ache I mean. The one that asks, over and over, is this all there is? The one that asks, what am I really living for? You see, suffering is not merely about what happens to you. It is about what life is asking of you through what happens to you. This is the secret. Life is not a question you ask, but a question that asks you. And your suffering is the way life asks. Think of it this way, suffering is the silence after the music has stopped. It is the emptiness after the applause fades. It is the loneliness after the crowd disperses. And in that silence, that emptiness, that loneliness, life whispers, now tell me, what matters? Now tell me, who are you without the masks? Now tell me, what will you choose when nothing is left to choose from but yourself? This is why I say suffering is a gift, though it is wrapped in fire. It burns away illusions so that only the essence remains. Without it, you would continue to sleepwalk through existence, believing that comfort is meaning, that pleasure is fulfillment, that distraction is purpose. But suffering refuses to let you sleep. It shakes you awake and demands that you face yourself. But I do not speak of this as an abstraction, as a poetic exercise for the mind. I speak of it as one who has seen men and women endure horrors unimaginable, and yet emerge with a light that could not be extinguished. I have seen those who, though surrounded by despair, still offered kindness, still shared bread, still held on to love. And in those moments I learned that suffering is not the end of meaning, but the beginning of it. Ask yourself, when you look back on your life, what moments truly shaped you? Was it the easy days, the carefree hours, the unbroken successes, or was it the nights you wept and thought you would not survive? Was it the losses that forced you to discover strength you did not know you had? Was it the betrayals that taught you who you really are? Suffering is the chisel with which life carves depth into your soul. Without it, you would remain shallow, untested, unawakened. And yet, I know how tempting it is to escape. To run from pain into distraction, into addiction, into endless activity. To try to silence the ache with noise, with achievement, with approval. But the more you run, the louder the ache becomes. Because meaning cannot be silenced. And the truth is, you do not heal by avoiding suffering. You heal by listening to it. So let me ask you, what is your suffering trying to tell you? What meaning is it pointing toward? What transformation is it demanding of you? Do not say you do not know, you do know. Somewhere deep within, you already sense the direction. It may frighten you, because it asks for change. It may humble you, because it demands responsibility. But it is there, calling to you through the very pain you despise. The world will tell you that suffering is a failure, that it is proof you are broken, that it is evidence you have been abandoned. But the truth is far more powerful. Suffering is evidence that you are alive, that you are human, that you are capable of becoming something more. To suffer is to be invited into the most profound adventure a human being can undertake, the search for meaning. And in that search, you are not alone. Every person you admire, every soul you look up to, every story of greatness you have ever heard, was born from suffering. Without it, there is no greatness. Without it, there is no compassion. Without it, there is no wisdom. Without it, there is no depth. This is why I invite you now to shift your perspective. Stop asking why you suffer, and start asking for what you are suffering. Stop asking why this pain has come to you, and start asking what it is calling you to become. This shift changes everything. For when you see suffering not as a meaningless burden but as a meaningful question, despair gives way to courage, and fear gives way to responsibility. The question then is, will you answer? Will you rise to the demand of your suffering? Will you dare to say yes to life, even when life wounds you? This is where freedom lies, not in avoiding pain, but in choosing your response to it. Freedom is not freedom from suffering. Freedom is freedom through suffering. And so I tell you, the secret meaning hidden in your suffering is not a secret at all. It is written into your very being. It is waiting for you to stop running, to turn around, to face the fire and step into it. It is waiting for you to say yes to life, yes to responsibility, yes to the possibility that even in the deepest pain, your life still has purpose. You might think that suffering is a punishment, but let me tell you, it is not punishment, it is passage. A passage from the life you imagine to the life you are truly meant to live. A passage from the illusion of control to the reality of freedom. A passage from shallow existence to profound depth. Every human being must walk through this passage, though each passage looks different. Yours may be loss. Yours may be failure. Yours may be illness, rejection, loneliness. But all passages point to the same destination, the discovery of who you are beyond circumstance. Let us look honestly at how we live before suffering touches us. We are often restless, yet directionless. We seek happiness, yet settle for distraction. We want to matter, yet drown ourselves in comparison. We fill our days with noise because silence terrifies us. We fill our hearts with shallow victories because emptiness frightens us. And then suffering comes and suddenly silence is unavoidable. Suddenly emptiness cannot be ignored. Suddenly we are face to face with the reality that life is not a game of endless comfort. Life is a question of ultimate meaning. What happens to you in those moments when suffering strips away the false certainties? You stand naked before existence. And though it is frightening, it is also liberating. Because only when you are stripped bare can you begin to build something real. Only when all illusions are gone can you start to live with truth. Only when the masks are burned away can you finally meet yourself. But here lies the challenge, suffering confronts you with freedom. Freedom to choose how you will respond. Freedom to create meaning where none is given. Freedom to say yes to life when everything around you tempts you to say no. Do you understand the weight of this? It means you are not a victim of fate. You are not a prisoner of circumstance. You are a creator of meaning. You are the one who decides what the suffering will mean. Yet freedom is heavy. Many prefer chains. Many prefer to say, I cannot choose, life has done this to me, I am powerless. But the truth is that even in the darkest conditions, there remains one freedom that cannot be taken, the freedom to choose your attitude toward what is given. I witnessed this truth with my own eyes. I saw men who had lost everything: family, home, health, future, and yet they walked with dignity, they shared kindness, they kept faith. And I saw others who surrendered, who allowed despair to consume them. The difference was not circumstance. The difference was choice. Ask yourself now, what choice are you making in the midst of your suffering? Are you choosing despair, or are you choosing courage? Are you choosing bitterness, or are you choosing responsibility? Are you choosing to see yourself as powerless, or as capable of giving meaning to even this? It is not an easy choice. It is the hardest choice of all. But it is the choice that determines whether suffering destroys you or transforms you. There is a story written into your pain. It is not the story of defeat. It is not the story of meaninglessness. It is the story of a soul being asked to rise beyond comfort, to awaken to its purpose. and you are the author of how this story unfolds. Do you not see that suffering has already shaped you? Think of the moments of compassion you have shown others, compassion born not of ease but of pain you once endured. Think of the wisdom you now carry, wisdom that did not come from books but from scars. Think of the strength you discovered when you thought you could not go on, yet you did. None of these gifts would exist without suffering. They were born through it. This is why I tell you, suffering is not meaningless. It is a midwife, delivering you into a greater self. But it is a harsh midwife, one that demands your cooperation. For if you resist, if you fight it only with denial and bitterness, you will not be born, you will remain trapped in the womb of despair. But if you yield to the process, if you ask, what meaning can I create here, you will emerge into a new life, a life marked by depth, courage, and authenticity. I know the temptation to look at others and believe they are untouched, that their lives are free from such trials. But no life is free from suffering. The question is never whether you will suffer, but whether your suffering will awaken you or break you. And those who seem untouched often suffer in silence, wearing masks of happiness while inside they feel the same emptiness you do. You are not alone. Your suffering is human. And to be human is to be entrusted with the task of creating meaning. Let me ask you, when you encounter your suffering, what story do you tell yourself? Do you tell yourself that life is cruel, that there is no point, that you are doomed to emptiness, or do you tell yourself that this is a call, a test, a challenge to rise into the fullness of who you can be? The story you choose shapes the future you will live. You may not control the suffering, but you control the story. And here lies the deepest mystery: meaning is not something waiting for you at the end of suffering. Meaning is something created in the very midst of it. The act of saying yes to life, even in pain, is itself the birth of meaning. You do not need to wait until the storm is over. The meaning is discovered while the storm still rages, when you plant your feet, lift your head, and declare, I will not give in. This declaration is not loud. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is as quiet as taking one more breath, walking one more step, showing one more act of kindness when everything inside you screams to close your heart. In these small choices, suffering is transformed. And through them, you are transformed. Let me remind you, meaning is not comfort. Meaning is depth. Meaning is responsibility. Meaning is the courage to bear suffering with dignity, to turn it into testimony, to let it shape you into someone who can serve, who can love, who can shine even in darkness. That is why the secret of suffering is not merely survival, it is transcendence. So I say to you, do not waste your suffering. Do not squander it by drowning it in distraction, by covering it with bitterness, by letting it harden you. Let it teach you. Let it awaken you. Let it carve into you the truth that life is not about what you get, but about what you give. Not about what you escape, but about what you embrace. Not about how little you suffer, but about how deeply you dare to live. For when the day comes that you look back, you will not remember the comforts, the distractions, the pleasures. You will remember the battles fought in silence, the tears that purified your heart, the choices that revealed your courage. And you will see that it was in suffering, not in ease, that you found yourself. So again I ask you, what is your suffering asking of you now? What responsibility is it placing upon your shoulders? What truth is it daring you to face? Do not turn away. This is your moment. This is your passage. This is your invitation into the deepest meaning of your life. Suffering is the thread that runs silently through every human life, weaving together moments that seem unbearable into a fabric we cannot yet understand. When you are in the midst of pain, it feels like chaos, like senseless cruelty, like a storm that will never end. But step back, look deeper, and you begin to see, the storm is not destroying you, it is shaping you. It is giving you form, it is carving your soul into a vessel capable of holding meaning. Do not mistake me, I do not glorify pain. I do not ask you to seek it, to idolize it, to romanticize it. Pain is pain, and suffering hurts. But I tell you that within it lies a possibility, a seed, a question. That question is, who will you become through this? For pain does not leave you unchanged. It either diminishes you or enlarges you. It either poisons you with bitterness or purifies you with depth. The choice belongs to you. Think of a sculptor striking marble with a hammer and chisel. To the stone, each blow feels violent, destructive, meaningless. But to the sculptor, each strike has intention. Each fracture reveals form. Each piece removed uncovers the figure hidden within. Your suffering is like those blows. To you it may feel like senseless breaking. But within the breaking lies the possibility of revealing your truest form. Ask yourself honestly, when has your soul grown most? Was it when everything went as planned, when life gave you ease, when success came effortlessly, or was it when life wounded you, when you were forced to confront what you thought you could not endure? You know the answer. Growth rarely comes in comfort. Depth is not carved by ease. Meaning is not born in the absence of suffering, but in your response to it. There is a reason that people who have suffered often carry a presence you cannot fake. A gentleness, a gravity, a compassion that cannot be imitated. They have walked through fire, and the fire has burned away the trivial. They no longer chase illusions. They no longer cling to shallow pursuits. They know what matters because they have faced what does not. Their eyes reflect a wisdom you cannot learn from books, you can only learn it from suffering. And perhaps you too are being invited into this wisdom. Perhaps your suffering is not punishment, but initiation. Initiation into a life of authenticity, of depth, of courage. An initiation few choose willingly, but all must encounter eventually. The question is not whether you will suffer, but whether you will awaken. Look around at the world we live in today. We are surrounded by endless promises of escape. Advertisements tell us we can buy our way out of emptiness. Entertainment tells us we can laugh our way out of despair. Technology tells us we can distract our way out of silence. But no matter how much we consume, the ache remains. Because the ache is not meaningless, it is the reminder that you are meant for more than distraction. You are meant for meaning, and meaning is born in the place you do not want to go, the heart of your suffering. Do you see why so many feel empty, even when they have everything? Because they have tried to live without suffering, to erase it, to deny it. But to erase suffering is to erase meaning itself. For meaning is not found in what is easy, but in what is endured. Not in what is given, but in what is created. And suffering is the canvas on which meaning is painted. Consider love. Real love is not proven in comfort. It is proven in sacrifice, in hardship, in suffering willingly endured for the sake of another. If love demanded nothing, it would be shallow. It is the very suffering of love, the patience, the forgiveness, the bearing of burdens that reveals its truth. So too with your life. Its meaning is revealed not when everything goes right, but when you choose to stand, to love, to give, even when everything goes wrong. I know what you are thinking. Why must it be this way? Why must suffering be the gateway to meaning? Why cannot life be full of purpose without pain? But consider this, if life were only ease, would you ever be forced to ask who you truly are? Would you ever be driven to search beyond yourself, to reach for transcendence, to discover depths you did not know existed? Ease numbs. Suffering awakens. And though it feels cruel, it is also grace. For it calls you into your truest humanity. You are more than flesh seeking comfort. You are spirit seeking meaning. And the spirit does not grow in pleasure, it grows in struggle. The seed does not blossom in the absence of darkness, it must first be buried in the soil. The soul does not blossom in the absence of suffering, it must first be buried in trial. And only then does it break open and reach for the light. So let me tell you plainly, your suffering is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter. It is the soil from which your deepest self can grow. Do not curse it. Do not waste it. Ask it what it wants to teach you. Ask it what meaning it is hiding. Ask it what life is demanding of you in this very moment. There will come a day when you will look back and understand. A day when you will see how every wound carved the wisdom you now cherish. A day when you will realize that what once felt like cruelty was, in truth, the invitation to awaken. A day when you will be grateful for the suffering you once despised, because without it, you would not have become who you are. But that day is not yet here. Today you are in the midst of it. Today the fire burns. Today the ache is real. And that is why I urge you, hold fast. Do not give up. Meaning is already present, even if you cannot yet see it. It is being born in your endurance, in your courage, in your choice to continue even when continuation feels impossible. For every breath you take in suffering is a defiance of despair. Every step you walk in pain is an act of meaning. Every refusal to surrender is itself a victory, and these small victories accumulate, shaping you into someone who can carry light into darkness, who can carry hope into despair, who can carry meaning into a world starving for it. Do not say your suffering is wasted. Nothing is wasted that awakens you. Nothing is wasted that deepens you. Nothing is wasted that teaches you to love, to forgive, to endure, to create meaning. The world may see only your scars. But you know that each scar is a testament, each scar is a story, each scar is proof that suffering did not destroy you, it transformed you. So again I ask you, who are you becoming through your suffering? What meaning are you creating in this fire? What purpose is being born through this pain? These questions are not burdens, they are gifts. They are the very gifts your suffering came to deliver. If you stop for a moment and listen carefully, you will hear something most people spend their entire lives trying to silence. It is not the noise of the world, not the chaos of responsibilities, not the endless demands placed upon you by others. It is the quiet, insistent voice of your own suffering. Most people try to drown it out, running faster, working harder, numbing themselves with distractions, hoping that if they never stop, they will never have to face it. But the truth is that suffering waits patiently, and it always finds a way to speak. And when it speaks, it does so with a strange kind of authority, as though it knows something about you that you have forgotten. You might think suffering is only there to break you, to weaken your resolve, to expose your frailty. But what if I told you that within your suffering lies a kind of map, a hidden meaning, a thread that, if followed, could lead you back to the deepest truth of who you are? What if the very thing you fear the most is the doorway to what you crave the most? You see, we long for meaning, and meaning is not given to us in moments of ease. Meaning is revealed when everything else is stripped away, when the superficial collapses, when there is nothing left to lean on but the question, why endure? The question of suffering is not an abstract philosophical riddle. It is the most personal question you will ever face. You cannot outsource it to teachers or philosophers, to therapists or preachers. You cannot hand it over to books or to sermons and say, "Here, you answer it for me." Because the suffering is yours. The ache is yours. The silence in the night is yours. And so the answer, the hidden meaning within it, must also become yours. That is why no one else can live your life for you. That is why no one else can give you the meaning you long for. Do you ever notice how suffering isolates you? People can surround you with kindness, but still you feel alone in your pain. Friends can sit beside you, but you still hear the voice of suffering whispering to you in the secret chambers of your mind. And yet, it is precisely this isolation that reveals something extraordinary, that in the core of your being, in the depth of your solitude, there exists an unshakable freedom to choose how you will respond. No one can take that from you. They can wound your body, strip away your possessions, humiliate your name, but they cannot force upon you the meaning you attach to your suffering. When I was imprisoned, I watched men crumble under despair, and I watched others rise with an almost impossible dignity. We were subjected to the same cruelty, the same deprivation, the same horizon of hopelessness. And yet the difference between us was not in what we endured but in how we chose to meet it. Some asked, "Why me?" and fell into despair. Others asked, "For what?" and discovered within their pain a reason to endure. That is the secret of suffering. Its meaning is not hidden in the suffering itself but in your response to it. Do not mistake me, I do not glorify pain. I do not romanticize loss. Suffering is terrible, and we must never pretend otherwise. To deny its terror would be dishonest. But to deny its potential would be even worse. Because hidden within that terror is the possibility of transformation. Pain tears apart the illusions that comfort you but also trap you. It rips away the masks you wear for the world and exposes the raw truth of your existence. And though this exposure feels unbearable, it is also the birthplace of authenticity. Perhaps you think you are weak because you suffer. But consider this, it is only in suffering that strength has the chance to exist. What value has courage if life never frightens you? What value has endurance if there is nothing to endure? What value has faith if it is never tested without suffering? These virtues remain theoretical, untested, dormant. But suffering awakens them, sharpens them, calls them into action. Suffering, then, becomes the stage upon which the noblest parts of your soul perform. You may ask, but why should I have to suffer at all? I cannot answer that for you. Life asks that question of you, and you must answer with your own existence. But I can tell you this, to live is to suffer, yes, but to find meaning in suffering is to learn how to live. The pain will come whether you seek it or not. But the meaning that is yours to uncover. That is the hidden treasure buried in the dark soil of suffering. Think of your suffering as a mirror. When you gaze into it, you do not merely see pain reflected back, you see yourself. You see what you cling to, what you fear losing, what you believe you cannot live without. You see the cracks in your soul where light still longs to enter. And if you look long enough, with honesty and courage, you will find that suffering does not only reveal who you are, it reveals who you could become. That is why suffering feels unbearable, because it forces you into confrontation with yourself. It asks you to face the unanswered questions of your existence. Who are you without your achievements? Who are you without your possessions, your titles, your reputation? Who are you when everything is taken away? These are not comfortable questions, but they are essential ones. And the answers to them can only be written in the language of endurance, in the ink of tears, in the silence of nights where hope feels far away. But perhaps you have already noticed something. The very moments you thought would destroy you have also revealed strengths you did not know you had. The heartbreak that felt like the end of everything showed you your capacity to survive. The loss that left you hollow also created space within you for a deeper love, a more profound compassion. The failure that humiliated you also freed you from the tyranny of perfection. Again and again, your suffering has not only broken you, it has built you. It has carved channels in your soul through which meaning can flow. So do not run from your suffering. Do not numb it, deny it, or bury it beneath distractions. Instead, lean in and listen. Ask it, what are you trying to teach me? What truth are you trying to reveal? What meaning are you hiding within me? You may not receive the answer immediately, but the question itself will change you. Because to ask it is to acknowledge that your suffering is not random, not meaningless, not just a cruel accident of existence. To ask it is to affirm that somewhere within your pain lies the seed of transformation. And remember this, your suffering is not only about you. How you endure it, how you find meaning within it, becomes a beacon for others. Your scars can either be signs of defeat or symbols of resilience. When you carry them with dignity, you show others that survival is possible, that meaning is discoverable, that even in the darkest night, a faint light still glows. Your suffering, then, is not only your private battle but also your contribution to the human story. There is a paradox in suffering that few are willing to face. The very thing that feels like an enemy can become your greatest teacher. The very force that threatens to destroy you can awaken you to the essence of life. It does not happen automatically. Many are crushed beneath the weight of suffering because they believe it has nothing to offer but despair. They resist, they fight, they demand explanations, and in doing so, they miss the quiet invitation that suffering always carries. That invitation is this: will you allow me to transform you? Transformation does not come from comfort. Comfort reinforces what already exists. It tells you that you are fine as you are, that nothing needs to change, that you can drift through life without ever questioning who you are or why you are here. But suffering does not permit such illusions. It tears them apart. It forces you into the raw confrontation with truth. And though this confrontation is painful, it is also purifying. It strips away the false so that the real may emerge. You may wonder why life must work this way. Why must growth require pain? Why must love risk loss? Why must courage demand fear? Why must meaning be hidden inside suffering? These are questions as old as humanity, and yet each of us must face them as though for the first time. I cannot answer them for you with a neat formula or a comforting doctrine. But I can share with you what I discovered, that when suffering comes, it always offers two paths: the path of despair or the path of meaning. You cannot avoid the crossroads. You must choose. And this choice is not abstract. It is lived in the smallest decisions of your daily existence. When pain comes, do you numb it with distractions, or do you listen to it when loss tears you apart? Do you close your heart, or do you allow compassion to deepen when failure humiliates you? Do you shrink in shame, or do you rise with humility and courage? Each of these choices is a seed, and over time they grow into the tree of your character. I know you sometimes feel powerless in the face of suffering. You cannot control when it comes, how long it stays, or what form it takes. But you always retain one power, and it is the most important power of all, the power to decide what suffering will mean to you. Will it become the reason you give up, or will it become the reason you endure? Will it harden you into bitterness, or will it soften you into compassion? Will it leave you empty, or will it open within you a depth you never imagined possible? Do not underestimate the weight of this freedom. It may feel small compared to the enormity of your pain, but it is precisely this freedom that defines your humanity. Animals suffer, but they do not ask why. They endure, but they do not interpret. You, however, have been given the ability to make meaning. That is both your burden and your gift. Think for a moment of the people who inspire you most. Are they those who never knew suffering, whose lives were marked only by ease, or are they those who faced the abyss and returned with wisdom, those whose scars became stories, those whose brokenness became a beacon? We do not admire them because they were spared suffering. We admire them because they found meaning within it. Their lives remind us of what is possible for our own. But let me speak to you directly. Your suffering is not theoretical. It is not just an idea we are exploring together. It is personal. It has a name, a face, a memory. Perhaps it is the grief of someone you lost. Perhaps it is the loneliness that haunts you even when you are surrounded by others. Perhaps it is the failure that left you feeling worthless. Perhaps it is the shame you carry in silence, the wound no one sees. Whatever form it takes, I want you to know this: you are not weak because you suffer. You are human. And because you are human, you have the capacity to transform this suffering into meaning. Yes, suffering isolates. But it also connects. For though your pain is unique, the experience of suffering is universal. Every person you meet carries scars. Every smile hides a wound. Every strong hand has trembled in weakness. When you realize this, you understand that your suffering is not only your private burden, it is part of the shared human story. And when you dare to speak of it, when you dare to reveal your scars, you create space for others to do the same. In this way, suffering does not only divide, it unites. Have you noticed how the deepest friendships, the most unbreakable bonds, are often forged in shared suffering? Soldiers who survive battle together. Families who endure tragedy side by side. Strangers who meet in hospital waiting rooms. In the crucible of suffering, something extraordinary happens. The masks fall away, the trivialities vanish, and what remains is the raw truth of our shared humanity. It is there, in the ashes of loss, that compassion is born. Do not fear this compassion. Some think it makes them weaker to feel deeply the pain of others. But in truth, compassion is the strongest response to suffering. It does not eliminate pain, but it redeems it. It turns your wounds into wells from which others may drink. It turns your scars into maps by which others may find their way. In this way, suffering becomes not only bearable but meaningful, because it is no longer wasted. I ask you now, what is the story of your suffering? Not the story you tell others to hide the rawness of your pain, but the story that lives silently in your heart. Is it a story of defeat, of hopelessness, of despair, or could it become a story of resilience, of transformation, of meaning? The choice is yours, and it is made not in one grand decision but in the quiet, repeated decisions of every day. Life will not ask you if you wish to suffer. It will not ask for your permission before it places sorrow in your path, but life will ask you this: what will you do with it? And your answer, spoken not in words but in the way you live, will shape not only your destiny but the legacy you leave behind. Perhaps even now you feel the resistance rising within you. A voice whispers, "This is too much. I cannot bear it. I want only escape." That voice is natural. Do not condemn it. But do not obey it either. Instead, listen to the deeper voice, the one that speaks not from fear but from courage. It whispers, "Endure. Transform. Discover meaning." It is quieter, yes, but it is also more enduring. That voice will carry you through the darkest nights if you choose to trust it. Now I want you to consider this: suffering is not merely something that happens to you. It is not a passive experience, a cruel hand of fate imposed without reason. Suffering is a dialogue, a conversation between your inner self and life itself. It asks questions that cannot be ignored, demands answers that must come from your deepest core, and challenges you to step into a new dimension of consciousness. And though it may feel like a conversation with silence, with emptiness, with absence, it is, in truth, the most profound conversation you will ever have. Think about the quiet moments in your own life. When you are alone, when the distractions fade, when the noise of the world recedes, do you notice the subtle messages within your suffering? Do you sense that it is pointing you somewhere, urging you to awaken, challenging you to rise above the superficial, beckoning you to discover meaning? Most ignore these whispers. They push them aside. They anesthetize themselves with comfort. But those who listen discover something astonishing. Suffering is not a punishment. It is an invitation. Do you want to know why suffering is so persistent, why it seems to linger, to return, to haunt your days and nights? It is because life refuses to let you settle for a hollow existence. Life refuses to allow you to hide behind illusions of happiness, success, or distraction. Life demands engagement. Life demands responsibility. And suffering is the tool that forces you to confront these demands. It will not leave you alone until you answer its call. Some ask me, Victor, is there a limit to this suffering? Must life always hurt this way? I do not have a simple answer. Suffering is as limitless as our capacity to avoid it. But there is a principle that can guide you. The more you face it, the more consciously you endure it, the more meaning you extract from it, the lighter its weight becomes. Not because the pain vanishes, but because you rise above it. You transcend it. You discover within it a dimension of freedom that no circumstance can ever take from you. This is the paradox: suffering can enslave, and suffering can liberate. It can crush the spirit, and it can awaken it. The difference lies entirely in your response. And here, my friend, lies the ultimate power you possess, the power to choose your response. It may be the smallest power in the face of overwhelming events, yet it is the most profound. Because in this response lies your freedom, your humanity, your opportunity to transform life into meaning. Consider for a moment those who have endured unimaginable horrors. History is filled with names and stories, some known, many unknown, who suffered beyond comprehension yet discovered meaning within it. They were not spared from suffering, yet they were elevated by it. Their suffering did not crush them because they refused to let it define them. Instead, they let it refine them. And refinement, though painful, is necessary if we are to move from the ordinary to the extraordinary, from the superficial to the profound, from despair to meaning. Perhaps you are skeptical. Perhaps you feel that your suffering is too great, too unrelenting, too personal to carry any meaning. I understand. The suffering that visits us can seem singular, unique, and unbearable. But consider this: suffering is always personal, yet its patterns are universal. The grief that rends your heart, the loneliness that chills your nights, the loss that shatters your expectations, these are experiences every human being encounters in some form. You are not alone, even if it feels like it. And in this recognition, there is a strange comfort, a glimmer of hope, a quiet promise that meaning is not beyond reach. Ask yourself now, what is it that suffering demands of you? What question is it asking in the silence of your nights? Perhaps it asks you to find courage you have not yet known. Perhaps it asks you to forgive when forgiveness seems impossible. Perhaps it asks you to love even when love seems dangerous. Perhaps it asks you to hope even when hope feels like a betrayal of reason. These demands are not burdens, they are opportunities. They are invitations to step into a larger version of yourself. And there is more: the meaning you create through suffering does not vanish. It echoes. It radiates. It shapes the lives of others in ways you may never see. Your endurance, your courage, your willingness to rise above despair, these become beacons for those who walk similar paths. Even your smallest acts of meaning, performed in the shadow of suffering, ripple outward, carrying light into the darkness of the world. Do not believe that suffering isolates you completely. It connects you in ways both intimate and universal. Every human being carries wounds. Every human being has stared into the abyss. Every human being has asked, in the silent chambers of the heart, why me, what now, how do I endure? When you understand this, you realize that your suffering is not an anomaly but a thread in the vast tapestry of human experience. And when you accept it, when you embrace it as a source of insight, your suffering becomes a bridge, linking you to the collective strength of humanity. I want you to hold this thought: suffering is not something to escape from, it is not an enemy to fight with all your strength. It is a teacher, a mirror, a doorway. It will not leave you untouched, and it should not. For in its touch, there is the possibility of awakening. In its challenge, there is the chance to discover courage. In its trial, there is the opportunity to find meaning. And here is the final truth I wish to impart in this moment: no one can grant you meaning. No teacher, no book, no philosophy can deliver it fully. Meaning is discovered. Meaning is created. And the raw material from which it is forged is your suffering. Every tear, every loss, every wound is a brick in the foundation of a life lived with purpose. Ignore this, and the bricks remain unshaped, the foundation weak, the building incomplete. Accept it, and you construct a life of depth, resilience, and profound significance. Suffering is never random. Even when it feels chaotic, even when life appears cruel, there is a hidden structure, an invisible hand guiding you towards something deeper. You may not see it immediately. You may question it endlessly. You may rage against it with every fiber of your being. And yet, beneath the pain, there is a design, one that asks you to look beyond the immediate discomfort to the larger meaning waiting for you. Think of a river cutting through rock. The water does not pause, it does not retreat. It flows relentlessly, sometimes creating chaos, sometimes destroying what stands in its path. But over time, the water shapes the rock, forming valleys, canyons, and pathways. Your suffering is like that river. It may feel destructive, unrelenting, unfair. But it also shapes you. It carves into your being the channels through which meaning, wisdom, and compassion will one day flow. Ask yourself, how many times have you resisted the current of your own life? How many times have you wished suffering would disappear? Rather than recognizing it as a guide, we often wish for ease, for comfort, for life to hand us meaning without challenge. But the truth is, without the river of suffering, we remain shallow. We remain unshaped. We remain unable to hold the depth that life demands. There is a quiet courage in facing suffering that many will never understand. It is the courage to wake each morning when despair whispers, "Why continue?" It is the courage to look another person in the eye, even when your heart is heavy with grief. It is the courage to create, to love, to hope, to act, when the world seems indifferent to your struggle. This courage is not loud. It does not seek applause. It exists in the private chambers of your soul, where no one else can see it, yet it defines who you truly are. Consider for a moment the small acts of endurance you have already performed. Perhaps you carried a burden silently, never sharing it with anyone. Perhaps you offered kindness when bitterness would have been easier. Perhaps you persevered in a task, in a relationship, in life itself, when every part of you screamed to give up. These acts, though unnoticed by the world, are monumental. They are evidence that you are capable of responding to suffering not with defeat but with the quiet heroism of meaning. And yet, so often we measure life by the wrong standards. We look at wealth, at status, at external success, and we assume that those who have more are happier, that those who suffer less are fortunate. But happiness is not the absence of suffering. Success is not the absence of struggle. Meaning is born in the crucible of difficulty, not in the comfort of fortune. Those who appear to glide through life without hardship may be missing the depth that suffering alone can cultivate. Do you see now why I insist that suffering is not a curse, but a call? It calls you to awaken, to look honestly at yourself, to examine the depths you have never touched. It calls you to discover the hidden capacities of your heart, the untapped reservoirs of courage within your spirit, the profound strength of your mind when it chooses to rise above despair. Suffering is not a punishment, it is a summons. It demands that you engage with life in a way that nothing else can. I know you sometimes feel exhausted by the weight of your own pain. You may think that endurance has a limit, that your heart has no more capacity to hold sorrow. But the human spirit is resilient in ways you cannot yet imagine. You can endure more than you think. You can rise higher than you expect. And in doing so, you discover the secret that suffering has been trying to teach all along, that your strength is not measured by what you avoid, but by what you withstand with dignity. This is why I urge you not to look away. Do not bury your suffering beneath distractions, nor deny its presence with rationalizations. Face it. Examine it. Ask it questions. Ask yourself questions. What is this teaching me? What meaning can I extract from this experience? How can I respond so that my suffering does not go to waste? These are not easy questions. They are not questions with immediate answers. But in asking them, you participate in the creation of a life that is truly yours. Consider, too, the nature of transformation. Transformation does not occur in a single moment of revelation. It occurs gradually, in the repeated choice to respond meaningfully to suffering. Each act of courage, each act of patience, each act of compassion adds to the scaffolding of your emerging self. Over time, these acts accumulate into a character that is unshakable, into a soul that is luminous, into a life that carries purpose beyond mere survival. Perhaps the most profound lesson of suffering is that it teaches you to live in alignment with what matters most. When stripped of illusions, when faced with loss, when confronted with limitation, you are forced to prioritize what is essential. You learn that love is paramount, that integrity is indispensable, that kindness is not optional, that courage is required. Suffering distills life to its essence, revealing the truths that comfort often conceals. And here is the gift: once you begin to see suffering as a guide rather than a punishment, you stop asking life for convenience and start asking life for meaning. You begin to see that every trial, every heartbreak, every disappointment is an opportunity to step more fully into your purpose. This does not make suffering easier, but it does make it intelligible. It transforms it from chaos into a path, from random misfortune into deliberate instruction. Finally, remember this: your suffering is unique, but it is also universal. The feelings of despair, the doubts, the sense of helplessness, these are shared by countless others. And in this universality lies the power of connection. By enduring with courage, by responding with meaning, by living authentically in the midst of pain, you become part of a larger story. A story of human resilience, of triumph over adversity, of the endless capacity of the human spirit to discover meaning even in the most difficult circumstances. Have you ever noticed how suffering sharpens your perception of life? It forces you to see what others overlook, to hear what others ignore, to feel what others suppress. Comfort numbs the senses, ease dulls the soul. But suffering heightens awareness. It reveals subtleties, uncovers truths, and compels you to confront realities you might otherwise evade. The shadows you fear most carry the most profound illumination if you are willing to look into them. Consider the nature of fear in suffering. Fear is inevitable. The unknown is terrifying. The ache in your heart is alarming. But fear need not dominate your existence. It can become a companion, a guide that teaches caution, prudence, and insight. It can point to areas where courage is required, where endurance will yield meaning, where attention is most urgently demanded. Fear, when approached wisely, becomes not a barrier but a compass, indicating the path where growth is waiting to be discovered. And yet, courage is never easy. True courage does not arise spontaneously. It is not a gift bestowed upon the fortunate few. It is cultivated, painstakingly, through repetition, through practice, through small victories. Each time you endure a moment you would rather avoid, each time you act with integrity despite uncertainty, each time you choose hope over despair, you are exercising courage. And this courage, once strengthened, becomes the backbone of a life capable of extracting meaning from suffering. Have you noticed that suffering often reveals the fragility of the self? All the things you thought defined you, your possessions, your reputation, your accomplishments can crumble or vanish. And when they do, the question arises, who are you without them? Who remains when all external supports are stripped away? Most people panic at this revelation, clinging desperately to the remnants of identity, yet within this emptiness lies the opportunity for rebirth. The destruction of the old self is the doorway to the emergence of the authentic self. This is why suffering is indispensable for those seeking depth. It forces a confrontation with the self that comfort cannot. It challenges assumptions, uproots false beliefs, and compels examination. When the illusions fall away, what remains is raw and real, and it is upon this foundation that true meaning can be built. The life you construct from suffering is not superficial, not contingent, not dependent on external validation. It is fundamentally yours. Think about compassion for a moment. Genuine compassion does not arise from comfort or ease. It arises from the recognition of suffering, both in oneself and in others. When you have experienced pain, you are attuned to the pain of others in a way that is intuitive and profound. Your suffering becomes a bridge, linking your experience to theirs. In this way, your pain is not wasted. It becomes a tool of connection, a vehicle through which empathy flows, a channel through which the human spirit can unite even in isolation. And there is something even more remarkable: when you extract meaning from your suffering, it transforms your entire relationship with life. You no longer ask life to conform to your desires. You no longer measure existence by comfort or convenience. You begin to see that life's value lies not in what it gives you but in what it demands of you. Life asks questions, and meaning emerges in the answers you provide. The harder the question, the more profound the answer can be. Suffering, then, is the ultimate teacher, posing questions that, if you engage them, will awaken capacities within you that you did not know existed. Do not fear solitude in this process. The moments when you feel most alone are often the moments when transformation is most potent. In solitude, the distractions fall away, the illusions dissolve, and you are left to confront reality unflinchingly. Solitude allows the soul to hear itself, to listen to the quiet urgings of courage, hope, and purpose. It is in these moments that the dialogue between suffering and meaning becomes audible, that the whispers of wisdom rise above the noise of the world, and that your capacity for insight expands exponentially. Ask yourself, then, what does your suffering want from you? What does it require to be honored, to be understood, to be transformed into meaning? It does not demand despair. It does not demand surrender. It asks only for engagement, for awareness, for the willingness to listen and respond. And the response you give is what transforms suffering from mere misfortune into the vehicle of your awakening. Let me tell you something about hope. Hope is not naive. It is not the blind optimism that pretends the world is painless or perfect. Hope is the conscious choice to believe that your suffering is not final, that meaning is discoverable, that your life is not wasted. It is the recognition that within the darkest moments, there exists the possibility for light, for growth, for purpose. Hope does not erase pain, but it illuminates the path through it. It is the companion of endurance, the ally of courage, and the foundation upon which a meaningful life is built. And what about love? Love is inseparable from suffering. Real love involves risk, vulnerability, exposure. To love deeply is to open yourself to pain, to disappointment, to loss. Yet it is precisely this openness that allows love to transcend mere sentiment and become a source of profound meaning. When you love in the midst of suffering, you transform both your pain and the world around you. You take what could be destructive and make it generative. You turn loss into connection, grief into empathy, emptiness into presence. Do not underestimate the power of your response to suffering. Each act of courage, each act of endurance, each act of love, each act of reflection, builds upon the last. It shapes the trajectory of your life, it sculpts your character, it refines your soul. And over time, these responses accumulate into a life of profound significance, a life that is a testament not to the absence of suffering but to the mastery of meaning. You may feel exhausted now, perhaps overwhelmed by the enormity of what I am asking. But let me reassure you, you are stronger than you know. Within you exists a reserve of strength, resilience, and insight that is revealed only when life tests you. You will stumble. You will falter. You will feel despair. Yet each time you rise, each time you confront the next moment with awareness and courage, you deepen your capacity for meaning. This is the quiet, persistent power of the human spirit, waiting to be realized through suffering. Finally, consider this: every moment of suffering carries a dual reality. On one side is pain, loss, isolation, fear. On the other side is opportunity, awakening, insight, connection. The moment you recognize both, you step into the central truth of human existence, that meaning is always possible, even when life is harsh, even when hope seems distant, even when despair threatens to dominate. It is this recognition that allows you to live fully, to endure wisely, and to transform suffering into the secret wellspring of purpose within your life. Now, let us reflect on endurance. Endurance is not a passive state, it is not simply bearing pain without complaint. Endurance is an active engagement with life in the face of suffering. It is the deliberate choice to confront what is difficult, to respond with courage, to extract meaning even when despair surrounds you. Endurance transforms you from a mere witness of life into an agent of it. It grants dignity, even when the circumstances seek to strip it away. Consider how often you have underestimated your own capacity to endure. You may have thought, in moments of hardship, that you could not survive another day. And yet, here you are. You have endured countless trials, perhaps without realizing the depth of your own resilience. Each day you have risen, each moment you have faced with awareness, has quietly shaped a strength within you. Strength that is unseen, yet profoundly real. Strength that will serve as the foundation for discovering the hidden meaning in your suffering. Suffering also teaches patience. In our culture, we are often taught that life should be immediate, that solutions should be rapid, that comfort should be constant. But the deepest lessons do not arrive quickly. Meaning is not something revealed in a single moment of insight, it is cultivated over time, through reflection, through experience, through careful attention to the unfolding of life. Suffering reminds you that some of the most valuable truths cannot be rushed. They require quiet observation, repeated engagement, and a willingness to wait. And what of transformation? True transformation requires acknowledgement. To deny suffering is to deny the possibility of transformation. To suppress it, to hide from it, to distract oneself from it, is to remain stagnant. Transformation begins when you face your suffering openly, without illusion, without defensiveness, without avoidance. Only in honest confrontation can the raw material of pain be converted into the architecture of meaning. Ask yourself now, what have you learned from the suffering that visits your life? Perhaps you have discovered patience you did not know you possessed. Perhaps you have uncovered courage hidden beneath layers of fear. Perhaps you have found compassion arising in unexpected ways. Each revelation, no matter how small, is a step along the path to understanding the secret meaning hidden in your suffering. These revelations accumulate, forming a mosaic of insight, a constellation of wisdom, a testimony to the resilience of the human spirit. Do not mistake this journey for an easy one. The path from suffering to meaning is rarely linear. It is filled with setbacks, moments of doubt, and experiences that challenge your faith in yourself and in life. But each challenge is also an opportunity. Each setback is a teacher. Each moment of doubt invites you to dig deeper, to examine more closely, to respond with greater intentionality. In this way, suffering is not a punishment but a curriculum. Life instructs through adversity, and those who engage its lessons discover the profound treasures that lie hidden within difficulty. And let us speak now of hope. Hope is not passive optimism. It is not the naive belief that suffering will vanish or that life will always be fair. Hope is the active recognition that meaning can be discovered even in the midst of hardship. It is the conscious decision to trust in your capacity to respond, to endure, and to extract significance from what life presents. Hope is the light that guides you through darkness, the quiet companion that whispers, "This, too, can serve a purpose." Consider also the role of love in suffering. Love and suffering are intertwined in ways that cannot be separated. To love is to open oneself to vulnerability, to risk, to the potential for loss. Yet it is precisely in this vulnerability that meaning is revealed. Love magnifies suffering, yes, but it also magnifies purpose. Love transforms pain from a solitary burden into a shared experience, connecting your heart to the hearts of others. It converts sorrow into empathy, grief into compassion, and loss into a deeper capacity for understanding. And here is a truth that must be embraced: your response to suffering defines you more than the suffering itself. Two individuals may experience identical hardships, yet one may succumb to despair while the other rises with purpose. The difference is not circumstance, it is choice. It is the conscious decision to interpret suffering as a teacher, as a mirror, as a path toward meaning. This choice is yours alone. No one else can make it for you. And in making it, you claim the most essential freedom available to any human being, the freedom to determine the significance of your life, regardless of external conditions. Reflect for a moment on resilience. Resilience is not the absence of pain. It is the mastery of response. It is the ability to continue, to act, to love, to create, to endure, despite the weight of suffering. Resilience is cultivated through repeated engagement, through reflection, through the willingness to face life's harshest truths without retreating into denial. It is a muscle of the spirit, strengthened with each conscious decision to confront rather than evade, to embrace rather than resist. Now, I ask you, what story do you wish to tell about your suffering? Will it be a story of despair, of avoidance, of meaningless endurance, or will it be a story of insight, of courage, of transformation, of meaning extracted from the raw material of your life? The story you choose will shape your identity, your relationships, and your impact on the world. Each day, each moment, Each choice is an opportunity to rewrite the narrative of suffering into a narrative of significance. Do not fear solitude, for in solitude the voice of suffering becomes clear. In solitude, you hear the whispers of wisdom that are drowned out by distraction, by noise, by the superficial demands of life. In solitude, reflection becomes possible, insight becomes attainable, and the hidden meaning within suffering begins to reveal itself. Alone, you can confront the truths you may avoid in the presence of others. And through this confrontation, transformation becomes not only possible but inevitable. Remember, too, that suffering is not a sign of weakness, it is a universal human condition. To experience pain, to feel loss, to grapple with fear and doubt, is part of what it means to be alive. To deny this is to deny your humanity. But to engage it, to face it with courage, to extract meaning from it, is to embrace the fullness of your existence. In this engagement, you discover the dignity and power that suffering conceals. And finally, I wish to leave you with this: the secret meaning hidden in your suffering is not something you must discover in a single moment. It is revealed gradually, through reflection, through action, through the conscious cultivation of insight, courage, compassion, and love. Each act of endurance, each choice to respond with purpose, each decision to extract meaning contributes to the architecture of a life that is rich, profound, and deeply human. So, when suffering comes, do not recoil. Do not seek to escape. Do not despair. Instead, lean in. Listen. Ask the questions it demands. Reflect, act, love, endure. And in doing so, you will discover that suffering is not an end, but a beginning. Not a punishment, but a teacher. Not a burden, but a guide. And in this discovery, you will touch the deepest truths of your existence, the secret currents that give life its purpose, and the hidden meaning that has been waiting for you all along. Let this be the foundation upon which the rest of your journey is built. Let it be the lens through which every hardship is reframed, every loss understood, every moment of despair transformed into an opportunity for awakening. For it is here, in this deliberate engagement with suffering, that you encounter the essence of life itself, and it is here that the human spirit reveals its unassailable power, to create meaning even in the most challenging circumstances, to rise beyond adversity, and to discover the secret that suffering holds for every willing heart. Let us return, for a moment, to the nature of choice. Life is rarely simple. It presents circumstances over which we have no control, events that arrive uninvited, losses that cannot be predicted. And yet, within this unpredictability exists the most profound freedom available to the human spirit, the freedom to choose one's response. Even when the world collapses around you, even when despair whispers that all is lost, this choice remains. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control what it becomes within you. This choice is subtle. It does not always announce itself with grand fanfare. Often, it is quiet, almost imperceptible, residing in the small moments of life. It is in the decision to endure when every instinct urges escape. It is in the willingness to continue loving when fear tempts withdrawal. It is in the act of compassion when anger or resentment seems easier. Each choice, though seemingly minor, accumulates like drops of water forming a river. Over time, these drops carve a channel that carries meaning through even the most desolate landscape of suffering. Consider how suffering shapes perception. Pain has the capacity to reveal hidden dimensions of life that comfort cannot. It forces us to notice subtleties, to observe with precision, to listen with intensity. When life is easy, the details escape us. We drift in habitual patterns, rarely confronting the depth of our existence. Suffering interrupts this drift. It compels presence, awakens attention, and sharpens consciousness. The anguish you feel is not merely a burden, it is a lens, clarifying what truly matters, exposing what is trivial, illuminating the pathways toward authentic engagement with the world. And yet, awareness alone is insufficient. The human spirit is designed not only to perceive meaning but to act upon it. Knowledge without action remains inert, abstract, unfulfilled. True engagement requires courage, the courage to step into the discomfort of life rather than flee from it, the courage to confront your own limitations rather than deny them, the courage to act with integrity when circumstances are uncertain. Courage transforms suffering from a passive experience into an active dialogue with existence, a conversation in which the human spirit asserts itself rather than succumbs. Have you noticed how suffering intensifies reflection? The mind, when pressed by adversity, turns inward, probing questions that comfort never compels. Who am I beneath the roles I inhabit? What is essential when everything else fades? What is the purpose that sustains me when all else is stripped away? These questions are uncomfortable, even frightening, because they demand honesty. But they are also liberating, because the answers reveal the contours of a life lived authentically, a life aligned with enduring truths rather than ephemeral desires. It is in this reflection that patience emerges. Modern life tempts us to seek immediate solutions, rapid comfort, instantaneous resolution. Suffering, however, teaches that some lessons cannot be rushed. The depths of insight, the understanding of one's own heart, the discovery of meaning, these unfold gradually, like the slow bloom of a flower in spring. There is no shortcut, no bypass, no way to accelerate the growth that suffering demands. To resist this pace is to resist life itself. To accept it is to participate in the creation of a self that can endure, empathize, and flourish despite adversity. Let us examine love in this context. Love, at its most profound, cannot exist without vulnerability. To love is to open oneself to the possibility of pain, disappointment, and loss. Yet it is precisely this openness that allows love to become transformative. When suffering enters, it magnifies the stakes, but it also magnifies the potential for depth, for connection, for insight. To love in the midst of suffering is to embrace both the fragility and the strength of the human heart. It is to recognize that meaning is often discovered not in avoidance of pain, but in the conscious integration of it into our experience of life. Consider forgiveness. Suffering often reveals the wounds inflicted by others, the injustices endured, the betrayals suffered. Holding on to resentment may seem natural, even justified. Yet forgiveness, though difficult, frees the soul from the bondage of bitterness. It does not excuse harm, but it liberates the one who forgives. In this liberation, meaning emerges, the recognition that your life is not defined by the offenses of others, but by your capacity to respond with integrity, compassion, and intentionality. Forgiveness is thus not a concession to weakness, but a triumph of strength. And here is another dimension: gratitude. Gratitude in the presence of suffering is not simplistic cheerfulness or denial of pain. It is the recognition that even amidst adversity, life offers lessons, connections, and moments of beauty. Gratitude transforms perception. It allows the heart to hold dualities, sorrow and joy, loss and discovery, despair and hope. When you cultivate gratitude, you do not diminish suffering, but you enhance meaning, discovering that each trial carries within it the seeds of insight, resilience, and growth. Let us explore the role of creativity. Suffering often drives us to seek expression, to translate inner turmoil into action, art, or words. Creative engagement is a form of dialogue with the self and with life. It externalizes internal struggle, giving form to chaos, structure to confusion, and voice to what was previously silent. In the act of creation, suffering is transformed. It becomes generative rather than merely destructive, a catalyst for insight rather than an obstacle to existence. Now, consider legacy. Suffering prompts reflection on the mark we leave upon the world. Every act of courage, every demonstration of compassion, every effort to extract meaning contributes to a larger story beyond oneself. The human spirit is designed not only to endure but to transmit. Your response to suffering influences others in ways both visible and invisible. By living meaningfully, you ensure that the lessons embedded in your pain resonate beyond your own lifetime, becoming part of the collective human narrative. And finally, let us contemplate the interplay of hope and despair. Despair arises naturally in the face of loss, failure, and limitation. It is instinctive, primal, and unavoidable. Yet hope is the conscious counterforce, cultivated through awareness, courage, and reflection. Hope is not denial, it is recognition. It is the acknowledgement that life's trials are not meaningless, that suffering carries the potential for insight, and that your choices in response to adversity determine not only your present but your enduring sense of purpose. Even now, as you confront this reflection, you may feel tension, uncertainty, or fear. This is natural. The path from suffering to meaning is neither easy nor comfortable. It is filled with questions that have no immediate answers, with challenges that seem insurmountable, with moments when the heart trembles in doubt. Yet these very conditions are the womb of transformation. It is precisely in the struggle, in the confrontation, and in the patient engagement with life's challenges that the human spirit discovers its fullest potential. Consider forgiveness in the context of suffering. When life wounds you, when injustice strikes, when betrayal pierces the heart, the instinct is often to harbor anger, resentment, or bitterness. Yet these reactions, while natural, bind the spirit and obscure meaning. Forgiveness is not an act of weakness, it is the conscious decision to release the chains of bitterness and reclaim freedom. It is the acknowledgement that your life is not defined by the offenses of others but by your capacity to respond with integrity, compassion, and purpose. In forgiveness, the pain of the past becomes a teacher rather than a tyrant, guiding you toward insight, resilience, and peace. And yet, forgiveness is rarely simple. It requires courage, patience, and reflection. It demands that you confront the wounds honestly, that you face your own vulnerabilities, and that you recognize the shared imperfection of human beings. In doing so, you transform suffering into an opportunity for growth, empathy, and the cultivation of moral and emotional strength. Each act of forgiveness, no matter how small, contributes to the architecture of a meaningful life, reinforcing the foundation upon which courage, love, and hope are built. Let us turn now to gratitude. Gratitude is often misunderstood as a simple acknowledgement of comfort or pleasure. In the presence of suffering, true gratitude is far more profound. It is the recognition that even in adversity, life offers lessons, opportunities, and moments of connection that are invaluable. Gratitude allows the mind to perceive the duality of existence, sorrow and joy, loss and discovery, despair and hope. By cultivating gratitude amidst suffering, you illuminate the path toward meaning, discovering that each trial carries within it seeds of insight, resilience, and transformation. Consider the role of patience once more. Life's most profound lessons do not arrive instantaneously. Meaning is often revealed gradually, emerging through reflection, deliberate action, and the accumulation of insight over time. Impatience leads to superficial understanding, to forced conclusions, and to avoidance of the deeper work that suffering demands. Patience, by contrast, allows the soul to absorb the lessons embedded within adversity, cultivating endurance, wisdom, and an unwavering capacity to act with purpose even amidst uncertainty. Reflect now on creativity as a response to suffering. When pain strikes, the human spirit often seeks expression. Creativity, whether through art, writing, music, or simple acts of problem-solving, transforms internal struggle into external form. It gives structure to chaos, voice to the silent depths of the heart, and shape to otherwise formless turmoil. In creation, suffering becomes generative rather than destructive, a source of insight rather than a source of despair. By engaging creatively, you translate experience into action, integrating suffering into a meaningful narrative that extends beyond yourself. And what of legacy? Suffering invites reflection on the imprint we leave upon the world. Each act of courage, each demonstration of compassion, each deliberate choice to respond with purpose contributes to a larger story that transcends the individual. The human spirit is designed not only to endure but to transmit, and through intentional action, the lessons embedded within your pain resonate outward, touching the lives of others. In this way, your suffering gains significance beyond personal experience, becoming part of the shared human narrative and contributing to the evolution of collective understanding. Let us examine hope once more. True hope is not naive optimism, it is a deliberate engagement with the potential for meaning amidst adversity. It is the conscious recognition that suffering need not define you, that insight and transformation are possible, and that your response can shape the significance of your experience. Hope sustains the heart when trials seem endless, illuminates the path when the terrain is dark, and provides the foundation upon which resilience, courage, and purpose are constructed. Consider now the subtle power of reflection. Suffering invites introspection, compelling you to ask questions that comfort never demands. Who am I beneath the roles I inhabit? What is essential when all else fades? How can I respond in a manner that aligns with my deepest values? These questions are uncomfortable, even frightening, because they demand honesty. Yet in answering them, you uncover the structure of your character, the depth of your resilience, and the hidden currents of meaning that flow beneath the surface of experience. And yet, insight alone is insufficient. Understanding must translate into action. Each conscious decision to act with courage, to respond with compassion, to cultivate patience, to practice gratitude converts awareness into lived reality. Meaning is not abstract, it is embodied. It is found not only in thought but in deliberate engagement with the unfolding of life. The smallest choices, accumulated over time, form a life that demonstrates the transformative power of human agency in the face of suffering. Let us return to the theme of courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the choice to act despite fear. Each instance in which you confront discomfort rather than retreat, each decision to endure when surrender beckons, strengthens the core of your spirit. Courage accumulates, forming a resilient backbone capable of sustaining life through even the most daunting trials. In this accumulation, suffering ceases to be merely a burden and becomes the crucible in which your moral and emotional capacities are refined. Reflect now on the role of empathy. Experiencing suffering deepens the capacity to perceive and respond to the struggles of others. Pain becomes a bridge, connecting your heart to those who also carry invisible burdens. Empathy allows suffering to extend beyond the self, creating a network of understanding, compassion, and shared human experience. Through this connection, your own pain is contextualized, integrated, and transformed into a force that strengthens relationships, communities, and the broader human spirit. And finally, consider the subtle interweaving of acceptance and transformation. Acceptance does not imply resignation, it does not mean endorsing the pain or injustice that life presents. Acceptance is the clear acknowledgement of reality, allowing insight, reflection, and deliberate action to emerge unimpeded by denial or futile resistance. Through acceptance, suffering becomes intelligible, navigable, and transformable. It is within this space that the human spirit discovers its most profound capacity to convert adversity into purpose, pain into insight, and trials into opportunities for enduring growth. Now, let us turn to the final dimension of this exploration, the interplay of suffering, meaning, and transformation in everyday life. Too often, we imagine that purpose and insight are reserved for extraordinary circumstances, that profound revelation occurs only in moments of triumph or calamity. Yet the truth is subtler. Meaning is discovered continuously, in the ordinary flow of existence, often mediated by suffering. Even minor discomforts, setbacks, and losses contain the seeds of insight, patience, courage, and wisdom. By engaging with these small adversities consciously, you cultivate the strength and awareness necessary to confront the greater trials of life. Reflect on the daily choices before you. How will you respond to irritation, to disappointment, to unmet expectations? Will you react impulsively, allowing frustration to dictate behavior, or will you pause, reflect, and respond with intentionality? Each small decision, though seemingly insignificant, accumulates. Over time, these choices define your character, shape your resilience, and form the architecture of a life infused with meaning. Suffering, whether monumental or minor, is never wasted when approached with consciousness and purpose. Consider the subtle ways in which suffering teaches empathy. The more deeply you have felt loss, rejection, fear, or isolation, the more attuned you become to the hidden struggles of others. Pain becomes a bridge, allowing you to recognize and respond to the silent burdens carried by those around you. This empathy is a profound form of engagement with life. It transforms suffering into a gift, enabling you to extend compassion, understanding, and connection in ways that otherwise might remain inaccessible. And let us not forget the role of reflection. The mind, when confronted with adversity, naturally turns inward. This introspection is not merely a byproduct of pain, it is a vital mechanism through which understanding, insight, and transformation emerge. The questions posed by suffering: who am I beneath the roles I inhabit? What is essential when all else fades? How can I respond meaningfully to adversity? Are uncomfortable but indispensable. Honest engagement with these questions reveals the hidden currents of meaning that flow beneath the surface of life. Now, let us contemplate patience and timing. Meaning is rarely instantaneously revealed. It unfolds gradually, requiring observation, engagement, and reflection. Impatience leads to superficial comprehension, forcing conclusions, and missing the subtle lessons embedded within suffering. Patience allows insight to develop organically, cultivating endurance, wisdom, and an ability to act with deliberate purpose. It is in this measured, attentive engagement that suffering transforms from a burden into a teacher, offering lessons that resonate throughout the entirety of one's life. Consider the power of small actions once again. In moments of difficulty, grand gestures may seem unattainable. Yet significance is often discovered in subtle, intentional acts: a kind word when frustration tempts impatience, an expression of gratitude in the face of disappointment, a decision to endure with integrity when surrender beckons. These small acts accumulate over time, forming a life that embodies the principles of meaning, courage, and compassion. Each act reinforces the human capacity to convert adversity into purpose. And let us reflect on courage. True courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act intentionally in spite of it. Each instance in which you confront discomfort, endure hardship, or respond with integrity strengthens the backbone of the human spirit. Courage accumulates, forming a foundation capable of sustaining life through challenges that once seemed insurmountable. In this way, suffering itself becomes a crucible for moral, emotional, and spiritual growth. Forgiveness, too, assumes a crucial role in this framework. Pain inflicted by others can linger, creating bitterness that obscures insight and hampers growth. Forgiveness is the conscious decision to release these chains, reclaiming freedom and agency. It is not denial or weakness, but the recognition that your life is shaped not by the offenses of others, but by your capacity to respond with purpose and integrity. Through forgiveness, suffering is integrated into a larger narrative of growth, empathy, and meaning. And gratitude, cultivated even amidst suffering, transforms perception. Gratitude allows you to recognize that every trial, every challenge, and every moment of adversity contains potential for insight, learning, and connection. It shifts focus from what is lost to what can be gained, from despair to deliberate engagement. Gratitude in the face of suffering does not diminish the pain, rather, it illuminates the deeper significance embedded within it, revealing the threads of purpose woven through every experience. Finally, let us embrace hope. Hope is not naive optimism, it is the deliberate recognition that suffering can serve a higher purpose, that meaning is discoverable, and that the human spirit possesses the capacity to transcend adversity. Hope sustains the heart when trials seem endless, illuminates the path when circumstances are obscure, and provides the foundation upon which courage, resilience, and insight are built. It is the quiet, enduring companion that whispers, even in the midst of suffering, your life can bear profound significance. So, when you encounter suffering, whether grand or subtle, sudden or gradual, do not recoil, do not deny, do not despair. Lean in. Reflect, act, love, endure. Ask the questions, observe the lessons, cultivate courage, practice forgiveness, embrace patience, extend empathy, and nurture gratitude. In doing so, you transform suffering from a source of despair into a guide toward the deepest truths of human existence. Understand this: your response to suffering defines you far more than the suffering itself. Two individuals may face identical adversity, one succumbs, while the other rises with insight and purpose. The difference lies not in circumstance but in conscious engagement. In each decision to confront, reflect, endure, and act meaningfully, you assert the ultimate freedom available to every human being, the freedom to determine the significance of your life, regardless of external conditions. Let this be your foundation. Let the understanding that suffering carries the potential for meaning shape every action, every reflection, every relationship, every moment of your life. Each trial is a teacher, each loss a guide, each challenge an opportunity. And through these, you will discover that suffering is not an end but a beginning, not a punishment but a path, not a burden but a source of insight, strength, and transformation. And so, in conclusion, remember this: the secret meaning hidden in your suffering is always present, waiting for the attentive, courageous, and reflective heart to uncover it. It is revealed gradually, through patience, deliberate action, insight, and love. It is expressed in empathy, compassion, courage, forgiveness, gratitude, and hope. And it is through your conscious engagement with life, through your choices, your reflection, your endurance, that the hidden meaning transforms suffering into a profound guide, illuminating the path toward a life rich with purpose, wisdom, and human connection. Let us now explore the subtle, almost hidden ways in which suffering cultivates wisdom. Wisdom is not born of comfort, ease, or certainty. It emerges from the crucible of adversity, from the friction between expectation and reality, from the moments when life presses so heavily upon the soul that one cannot ignore the questions that matter most. What is truly essential? What values endure when all else falls away? What does it mean to live authentically, fully, courageously, in the face of uncertainty? These questions, born of suffering, are the seeds of profound insight. Consider how suffering sharpens perception. The trivialities and distractions that occupy daily life recede in the presence of genuine struggle. Pain illuminates what is authentic and necessary, exposing illusions that comfort obscures. You begin to perceive the nuances of character, the depth of relationships, the contours of truth, and the currents of meaning that run beneath the surface of ordinary existence. Suffering is, in this sense, a teacher of attention, a guide to discernment, a lens that focuses the mind and heart on what is most consequential. And yet, insight alone is not sufficient. Knowledge without action is inert, awareness without engagement is sterile. The human spirit requires response. Every moment of endurance, every act of courage, every instance of intentional compassion converts understanding into reality. Small choices, accumulated over time, create a life that embodies the principles discovered through suffering. Each decision, however subtle, reinforces the architecture of meaning, the scaffolding of resilience, and the foundation of purpose. Let us examine love as it intersects with pain. Love is not a safe harbor, it is a dynamic force that exposes vulnerability, risk, and potential loss. And yet, suffering deepens love, rendering it more authentic, more empathetic, more attuned to the fragility and strength of life. When you love despite the inevitability of pain, when you extend compassion amidst disappointment, when you remain present in the face of loss, love transforms suffering into connection. It becomes both balm and revelation, teaching the heart the profound significance of presence, understanding, and shared humanity. Now, consider the quiet but transformative power of forgiveness. When harm occurs, when betrayal wounds, the instinct may be to resist, to harbor resentment, to erect walls. Yet forgiveness is not an act of concession, it is a conscious reclaiming of freedom. By choosing to forgive, you disentangle your spirit from the chains of bitterness, reclaim agency, and convert suffering into insight. In forgiveness, pain is not erased, but it is integrated into the narrative of growth, shaping a heart that is stronger, wiser, and capable of enduring with integrity. Gratitude, too, assumes profound significance in adversity. It is not a superficial cheerfulness that denies reality but a conscious recognition that even within suffering lies opportunity. Every trial, disappointment, and loss carries lessons, avenues for reflection, and potential for growth. Gratitude allows perception to shift from deprivation to awareness, from despair to understanding. It illuminates the hidden architecture of meaning, revealing that suffering, far from being a curse, is a vehicle through which insight, resilience, and transformation emerge. Let us reflect once more on hope. Hope is not naive optimism, it is an intentional stance toward possibility. It is the awareness that suffering need not define you, that insight can emerge from adversity, and that the human spirit retains the capacity to transcend circumstance. Hope guides the heart when trials seem endless, illuminates the path when the way is obscured, and sustains the courage to continue, even when the terrain appears insurmountable. In hope, the human soul affirms its capacity for growth, meaning, and enduring purpose. And now, let us consider the final, transformative insight. Suffering, when embraced with consciousness, courage, and reflection, reveals the ultimate freedom available to the human spirit, the freedom to determine the significance of your life, regardless of external circumstance. Every challenge, every moment of loss, every trial presents a choice, to respond with awareness, to cultivate resilience, to act with love, integrity, and empathy. In this response lies the secret meaning hidden in every experience, the hidden potential for transformation, the quiet but profound truth that suffering itself can be a pathway to freedom. The human spirit, when fully engaged, discovers that suffering is not merely an obstacle to be endured, but a teacher, a guide, and a catalyst. It reveals the contours of courage, the depths of empathy, the resilience of the heart, and the profound significance of every conscious choice. Life's trials, rather than diminishing existence, illuminate it. They strip away superficiality, clarify values, sharpen perception, and compel engagement with the essential. Through suffering, the human being becomes both witness and participant in the unfolding of meaning, a co-creator of purpose amidst adversity. And so, as we close this act, remember this: your suffering is not a punishment, a flaw, or a mark of failure. It is the very terrain in which your humanity is forged. Within it lies a secret meaning, patiently waiting to be uncovered by the attentive heart, the reflective mind, and the courageous spirit. Each tear, each moment of despair, each encounter with limitation is a brush stroke in the intricate portrait of your existence. Every act of courage, every decision to endure with dignity, every expression of love and empathy adds depth, color, and richness to this evolving masterpiece. In the end, the secret meaning hidden in your suffering is not an abstract truth, it is alive in the choices you make, the compassion you extend, the courage you exercise, and the hope you nurture. It is revealed in the small, deliberate acts that accumulate into a life of significance, a life that embodies the principles of resilience, integrity, and profound human connection. It is discovered when you pause, reflect, and embrace your experience fully, refusing to let pain dictate meaning, and instead allowing meaning to guide your response to pain. So stand, now, in the presence of your suffering. Do not shrink. Do not flee. Meet it with courage, with reflection, with love, and with purpose. Recognize in it the hidden potential for transformation, the pathway to freedom, and the invitation to live fully, authentically, and intentionally. The pain you endure is not meaningless. It is the teacher that shapes your soul, the guide that illuminates the path, and the force that, when engaged with consciousness, transforms every trial into a testament of human dignity, strength, and profound, enduring meaning. And finally, let this truth resonate: your suffering is the seed of your freedom, the crucible of your strength, and the gateway to your deepest understanding. To embrace it, to reflect upon it, to act through it, is to claim the ultimate victory over circumstance, the victory of a spirit that refuses to be defined by pain and instead discovers, within it, the secret meaning that makes life worth living, fully, authentically, and profoundly.